ISO FileMaker Magazine, the professional's resource for FileMaker know-how. Well, hello there, my fellow FileMaker learners and developers. This is Matt Petrowski bringing you these FileMaker tutorial videos from my website, FileMakerMagazine.com. In this video tutorial, I am pleased to bring you the topic of Quick Find Power Mode. And we are going to be taking advantage of Quick Find within our user interface. We'll look at Quick Find and how it works initially and see some of its shortcomings, and then we'll address those in our sample file. Let's take a look at what I've got and head over to my desktop. Alright, so first off, let's contrast the native Quick Find versus the Quick Find that we are going to be implementing into our own files. We have the two situations. One of them is FileMaker's native Quick Find, which is right up here up in the top status area, or they may be calling it the toolbar now, versus what we have right here, which is my implemented FileMaker field version of Quick Find. So let's take a look at a situation. Currently what I have is I have a database. It's got 504 records and they are unsorted. In fact, by default, whenever you do a find, the result is an unsorted result. So however many records you get back, they will still be unsorted. So in this event, you can see that I have a portal over here. And this portal happens to be showing all of its records in an unsorted fashion. This is just a local portal that I have right here. I believe it was added in FileMaker 17 or something. It's the portal where you can add it, and that portal will just simply show all of the current found set. Now, the thing that we're trying to address is the fact that we would like this portal to be sorted, and as a result of a search, we would like to have it continue to be sorted. On top of that, we would like to stay on the same record if that record is part of our search results. So we're working with, let me just do a normal find here, and I'll put myself on the record of Matt. I'll do a show all, which I just found all of them, and we will simulate what happens in native Quick Find. So here's the Quick Find right here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for everything that includes MA. Now when I do that search for MA, I'm expecting, by virtue of the fact that I'm on a record that does include the letters of MA, my name, Matt, I should be able to stay on that same record. I do the search, and you can see that it comes up with all MAs, and I am part of that. So that's a good thing that we want to replicate as part of our search when we're going to use it within a field. Let's put in MAT, and there it comes up, and you can see it stays on the same record. But we can see that the result of the search is still unsorted. So from a UI standpoint, we're going to want this to stay the same. Now, one of the issues that we have with Quick Find is that it requires the status area to be shown. And a lot of the times we are hiding that status area right there, and Quick Find goes away. So we need to replicate this into our user interface, but we want to have a few more features. What does it look like? Let's take a look. Alright, so now we're going to go through my implementation of Quick Find, and as you know, if you are a subscriber to the magazine website, you will have access to this technique file and everything that I show herein. So here we have a field, and it's just a regular global field, and I'm going to start doing some searches and show you what's really nice about this implementation. If I do MA, it's going to come up with all of my results. If I type MAT, you can see that just like with Quick Find, I stay on that record. If I'm selected on Matthew, and I click this and it clears out my set, I'm still on Matthew, and of course if I type MAT, I would expect to stay on Matthew, and I do. So I stay on this same record. I'm replicating that feature. But beyond that, what you can see is when I type in MA and I hit a return, what I'm getting is I'm getting a sorted number of records. We can see that in the status area right here by seeing that it is sorted. So no matter what we land on in terms of a result as part of our returned result based on our search, we are getting a sorted list of the records the way that we want. And we have these features. When you clear this, everything stays sorted. We are still in a sorted order. You can see that right there. Records always stay sorted, and we always stay on the target record that we want. But we have some other nice features in here. If I type in some gobbledygook, things that won't give me a result, look at this. I get a really nice visual feedback of 0 out of 504 found, no matches found. And there's multiple ways that I can get out of this. I have programmed it such that I can hit the escape key. If I hit the escape key, it essentially acts the same way that this button does, by simply clearing the search and then putting me right back at the 504 found. Otherwise, if I type in MAR, I get my 11, I put in MARG, and I get a smaller found set. The nice thing is, I continually stay in this field, allowing me to make very quick, rapid searches. I can search for nothing, I get nothing. I can type MA, I get MA, MAT, MATT, and MATTH, and I finally get my result. It's very quick in order to get the result that you want. So, in the remainder of this video, we are going to take a look at how we implement this. I've coded it in a fashion that allows you to add this search area to any layout, and universally it will work. And Quick Find, by the way, I'm going to show you a trick that I've long been using, is something that you want to take control over, and you probably don't have as much control, at least if you're just leaving FileMaker to do what it wants. And we're going to look at that. We're going to look at how we implemented this and talk about how you can maintain a sorted order and stay on the exact same record as a result of your search, and get this really nice feedback mechanism when you type something like gobbledygook and it tells you no matches found. You can just click and clear and then research, all the while staying in the same field. So let's dig into the details. If you're a subscriber, you'll have access to this file through the magazine website, and let's go take a look at how this all breaks down. All right, so let's take this step by step, all of the things that we need to have in place in order to implement this Power Mode Quick Find. I'm going to go into layout mode on this, and the first thing that you'll see right off the bat, of course, if you're an advanced developer and you've already downloaded this file from the magazine website, you're probably digging through all of the guts. This is a pretty simple one right here. This no matches found, let's get this one out of the way. We obviously have a hide setting on this, and we can see right there, actually, hide the object when the get found count. In other words, a get found count either returns 0 or a positive number. If it is a positive number, that means we have records and we do not want to show this. So anytime we have anything greater than 0, this will not show. But if we have 0, no matches found will show right here relative to where I performed the search and above the results. Very cool and convenient. I like to put things very close within proximity of where the user is interacting in order to give them good feedback. All right, that one out of the way. Number 2, let's take control of Quick Find. Now, when it comes to FileMaker, as soon as you go over to the fields and you drag on a new field, by default, FileMaker does this right there. It puts the little magnifying glass on, and that's if you have turned on under the View menu, under the Show menu, if you are viewing Quick Find. Now, my FileMaker is set up. I am mapping some keys. You probably won't have this key mapped on your copy of FileMaker unless you go into the System Preferences on Macintosh and map it. But we want to see all of these things because they give us clues about what's going on in our layout. But in particular, we can see where Quick Find is turned on. Here's my first tip. I always turn Quick Find off universally on all things. You can do that by selecting a field, because fields are predominantly where Quick Find takes over. But also remember that Quick Find will also take effect when you have on screen a merge field. So as I hold down and choose the Command Option M, this is a merge field, and Quick Find will apply to this if I turn it on. Where is that Quick Find setting? Well, it's over in the sidebar in the 4th area of the Data tab right here. We scroll down. Well, I'll just collapse this. We can see right here, Include Field for Quick Find. So you can see that even though this is not showing, like the field is showing this little indicator, which it only shows on fields, I don't know why, this is being used for Quick Find, and because it is a merge field referencing the actual field, Quick Find will be used. Well, here's what I do. I universally turn it off on all fields, and there's 2 ways you can do this. Well, more than 2. 3 actually. We can go to the Objects panel, and we can simply select an object in here and do Command or Control A and select all objects. With all objects selected on the layout, we can turn off this option right here. You can see that by clicking it, it turned it on right there, there, and there, and we can turn it off. So now there are no objects on this layout where quick find will apply. This is what I call taking control of quick find. We want to control where quick find is going to be used. How do you know when quick find is turned off? Let's get rid of those. Let's go into browse mode. Let's use FileMaker's native search, and let's search for MATT. And we get this dialog right here. There are no fields accessible by quick find. So we have taken control by turning off all quick find fields right there. And we are going to now explicitly take control and turn on only those fields that we want quick find to apply to. I've shown this in previous videos. It's a wonderful technique. Over here on the invisible area, or the non-showing hidden area of our FileMaker layout, you can see that I have this note, or it's basically just a text block formatted to look like a note, has the merge value of name. This is where I will put a merge field, just like I did with that Command-Option-M or Control-Shift-M, I believe, on Windows. And I am able to add in whatever fields I want to support for quick find. And all I have to do after having done that select all, turn quick find off for everything, is just specifically turn it on for this one field. So you can see, or this one text block. So just simply add any merge field that you want and then say this and this only is where quick find is going to be controlled. Now be aware, you're simply not going to want to drag a new field on. If you do, then that field by default will typically have quick find turned on. In this case, FileMaker retained its behavior. Because I did not have any fields with quick find, when I drag out that new field, then FileMaker did not have that. That must be a new change. It used to be that no matter what, if you drag out a field, quick find would be turned on. But I like that. I like the fact that this is the only object that quick find is going to apply to. All right, so now that we've got that out of the way, we should be able to go into browse mode, do our search for Matt again, and we get results. So quick find is only being applied to the name field right now. That's step number 2. Now that that one's out of the way, now what we need to do is we need to take control over quick find, and we need to use a dedicated field. Well, you can see in my database that I have a field that is a global field, and it's called search right there. So we can see it's a global field. It is simply just a text field. You can have this one field called search in one given table, which typically I will, called globals, and many times that is connected via the relationship graph, but even if it is not connected, you can still use a global field from an unconnected table occurrence in your layouts. It does work. A global field, in essence, is just a global field, global to all tables and to the file, and most everybody should be able to see it, although having it connected in the relationship graph does have its benefits. In this particular case, all I did is I put the field directly in the table. So I do both of these. Sometimes I have the global field in the table, sometimes I have it in a dedicated table called globals, and I just use it on whichever layout. Once we've got that, we do want to be able to target this field without using context. You have seen in many of my other videos that as best as possible, I attempt to write my scripts so that they are separated from context. That makes them universally available to your whole solution because you have not tied them to a layout, which is in turn tied to a table, which is tied to a group of connected table occurrences. Talking a little fast there. So this one field needs to be identifiable in a way other than its field name. What do we do there? In that case, we use our field object name. So I give this object the name of the type of object it is, in this case a field, .search. Very key point there. With that object named, we can now target that within our script. Speaking of scripts, when we look at the scripts that we are going to be going through, there is a collection of them. Let me close all of these and we will go through all of them one at a time. You can see that everything is broken down in this one folder called search. And if you copy everything in order, provided you are a subscriber and you've got access to the technique file, you can copy everything from this file and put this into your solution very quickly. But there's essentially 4 scripts that we have right here, and those 4 are going to make the magic happen. across your whole solution. It doesn't matter what the table is, this will work provided you set up your scripting nice, or set up your tables really nice. And if you have access to a search field, it'll work. So the next thing that we want to address is the sorting issue. In this particular case, what we have is we want to have this clear option, which we'll take a look at. I'll also tell you that you can enhance this search feature by adding this little component right here. So let's go over the actual field that we're adding, which is more than just the field. We go into layout mode. It is 3 parts. There is a popover, or you don't need a popover. Many times you can put the little magnifying glass here, and this can just be a button with an icon. But you have your field, and then you have this object right here. And this object can be a singular object, or, as we have right here, it can be 2 different objects, where I'm using a hide condition to simply look into the search field and say, if the search field has a value, then we're going to show this variation, which is a button, which will clear the search, which we'll see the script coming up shortly here. Otherwise, just show the white one underneath. It is possible to accomplish this with one single object and simply set the conditional formatting of this object such that the icon becomes transparent. I've done both, and it really just depends on the needs of my implementation. But this is a 3-part, and many times you will see that when we look at the styling for this, we'll look at the styles. I like to name these. I'm not going to be able to get to it right there because it's, well, maybe if I scroll that up so we can scroll. Will this list scroll? There it will right there. So there I can zoom and show you. So this is what I do. I simply just name these the 3 parts. I have a search left, a search right, and a search middle. Because these are different objects, this one is a button, this one is a button. So there you go. Search right for that one, search left for that one. And then this one, as I scroll up, or zoom out and scroll up, we can see I call search middle. So I simply just add the prefix for the styles of search left, right, middle, and what have you. All right, so now that we've got that out of the way, I did want to point out that this, being a popover, allows you to provide additional options for filtering. Many times your search, the user might want to modify that search, and that's where you would be able to offer this filter option. If you don't need the filter option, obviously you're going to use just the little standard magnifying glass to say that this is an area that you can search. Otherwise, like I state right here, provide additional filtering if you want it. So the key thing to this particular method is the whole sorting aspect. Now, a lot of the times when we write our scripts to be comprehensive and include all of the different parts. But this is a very important thing when it comes to FileMaker in terms of thinking and separating out what you want to have happen in terms of having a universal feature versus something that is very specific to what you're wanting to do. So in this case, the distinction is for this layout, what is very specific is the fact that I want my records to be sorted. So I have to think critically as a developer, is sorting these records specific to the search process? And the answer is no, it's not. I want to search, but I also want to sort, and being separate, the sort needs to happen independent of the actual search. So a lot of times, if you're a new or intermediate FileMaker developer, you are integrating that sort into your search script, and that's not what you want to have happen. So when we look at this, let me show you how I'm addressing the sort. We'll go into layout mode, and we will note, actually I won't go layout mode because I was basically just going to scroll to the bottom corner of this layout and show you the fact that a script trigger is turned on this, but we can actually see this when we go to the Manage Layouts, which I did with Command-Shift-M there, and we double click and we can see that on this layout, under script triggers, we are using the on-record-load script trigger. And this is a very simple way to always enforce and maintain that your records, no matter what the found set, or whatever the result is of how you got to a found set, whether it's go-to related record, the results of a search, those records always, from the perception of the user, perspective, I should say, stays sorted. So this one script right here, on record load, which normally I call this on record load and then whatever it is, clients, on record load, invoices, on record load, whichever the layout is focused on, this does get named and extended out. When we take a look at that script, the on record load, you will see that it is performing something super simple. It actually only gets to these two script points right here, here and here, and it's providing two different things. The two things that emulate, well, the one thing that emulates what QuickFind does natively, but the other thing, what it doesn't do. QuickFind, if you use FileMaker's QuickFind, does not sort your records, but we can see right here using the function of getSortState, which if the sort state is 0, that means that it's unsorted, or that may be the inverse. You'll have to look at the documentation. But essentially, I'm saying if the sort state of this database is not sorted, then we are going to perform the script of sort by name. Now, I could have put the sort directly in here, but many times you're invoking that sort in other ways. Maybe you have a button for sorting, and so calling a script is much better and putting the sort directly within that. If we command click on this or control click on that script, we can see that sort by name is simply just performing one step, and that is sort by the name. Heading back to the script, we can see that the other thing that this particular script does is if the record the user was on is part of the current found set, meaning it's part of the results that came up, we really don't want to take the user off of that record. Now, in order to invoke the sort, you need to know that if we stay on the same record, the record load trigger will not fire a second time because you have not loaded a new record. So let's think about this. I'm on the record Matt. I do a search for something that includes that record Matt. On record load had loaded a long time ago when I initially got on that record. I've not moved off of that record. Should FileMaker run the on record load again? No, it doesn't. So you will see in our search script, we are moving off of the current record for the purpose of being able to move on to the correct record simply in order to evoke or invoke the on record load trigger. And that's because in this script, we are able to do whatever we want when that record loads. And the only thing we're trying to affect right now is the fact that if we're on the current record, well, the result of a search is usually a new found set. But if we're on the same record and that trigger isn't going to fire, we do want it to fire as the developer. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's a new found set. Even though we're on the same record, I still want to have the opportunity to run that trigger of the on record load. This is what separates the two, the sorting from the searching. The searching will move the record, but the on record load is what will say, in this particular instance, I want to sort. Or on some other instance, I'm not going to run the on-record load. I don't need it. So we are using a global variable called onRecordLoad.id. And here's where we get to the second part of our whole solution, and that is how do we stay on the same record? FileMaker gives us a particular way to stay on the same record, and that is without us using our own ID system. Internally, FileMaker has a getRecordID function. It's one of the very few, if not the only, get function that can be used as a stored indexed value. Otherwise, most get functions, you typically want to show those as unstored calculations so that they're constantly updating based on the environment that's going on in FileMaker. But we say, if we do not have an empty global variable that says on record load with the ID within it, and if that value exists, meaning if the value that we are looking at is part of the current found set, we also need to determine that, which we are using the get summary, which you can see right here. We're saying get summary of the summary of the record IDs. Now, these are not super costly things. They are already in your FileMaker database, and we are just taking advantage of them. Then what we're going to do is we are going to set a global field called recID to the ID that we had captured before the search was performed. and we're going to go back to that same record without moving the layout. We're going to stay on the same layout, and then we are going to clear that variable, which, if you don't know, little tip, you don't have to have a double set of quotes in a set variable in order to clear it. You can just have that be empty, and it will reset that variable to nothing, and it will no longer exist. So what we need to look at now is the searching part, because all of the rest of these are really pretty simple. On record load is doing the sorting and the loading of the same record the user was on. Sort by name, super simple. That was just a single sort. And then show user records. This is something that if you are going to be creating a database where users can only access their own records, and by that I want to show you in the UI what I'm talking about. This result set right here, 504, I have full access to the database, to all data in this database. I'm accessing this as a full access user. When we go into found set or into the layout mode, we can see that I'm using the merge of variables of total record found count and found count of. This is very easy to put into your database. But if you have a database where certain users or groups of users only have access to certain sets of records, maybe based on a class of users can only see their own records, then this is going to be totally different. This is going to be a subset of the full set of records in your database. Likewise, in your scripting, it is my suggestion that you use a dedicated script that is called something like this: show the user's records. And that one script is going to be run, which will limit or focus that found set to whatever the user can see. So in this particular database, all users can see all records, so I'm just using the show all records. But you might have a script that simply says, do a find whatever records the users have access to. Maybe they're all tagged by the created by field or some other record, and then you're going to modify that result. Or you can do it in the inverse. Maybe you take the user's search criteria, which was a result of quick find, but then you apply a reduce the found set by using the find mode option. When we're in browse and we have find mode and we look at our requests, you're going to constrain the found set. So the user put in the criteria for quick find, they searched, they came up with a full list of records, which may include records that they're not supposed to have access to, some of which, depending on how your permissions are set. But you can then constrain that found set to limit it just to that user's particular records. And that's where using a dedicated script to do that is really helpful. And if you use that across all of your scripting, then it's really nice. I do this all the time. I don't put these little features into each script and spread it across my whole system, saying show all records here, filter by permission here, do whatever. I want dry code, one place, one script that says just bring up this user's set of records. So we are now at the point where we can look at the search field, the search scripts. Some of them are really simple, and the most complex one is just executing the query. So this one right here, you can see as I select and nothing came up right here, it is super simple. Go to the object field.search. This is what allows us to be context independent, because we're not going to the globals :search field or the whatever this current table occurrence is. We're not going to a field, we're going to an object, and we're always naming that object the field.search or whatever you want to name it. Super simple. Key watch. When we are in the search field, we want to support certain features. So when I'm here typing, if I hit the escape key after putting in gobbledygook, I want the escape key to clear this. I hit the escape key and it clears it, and it puts me back to showing my user's result of records of what they should see as a default for this portal to reset. When we zoom back out and we take a look at that, that's going to be really simple. We are using a, in fact, I've shown this in just some of my recent videos. I'm using a custom function that allows me to use human readable names of keyboard keys. So if you hit the escape key or the backspace and everything is selected, that means you're clearing the search field. And because you're clearing the search field, we're then going to do something. In this case, we're going to If the field or contents are empty, then that means that you want to get out of the field. We commit that, and then we exit with false. Oh no, that stays in the field. This false, as a result of the trigger, means that we don't advance. Remember, you hit the escape key or the backspace key, so stay in the field. User might want to input a new search. Otherwise, we perform this script of clear the search field. Clear the search field is really simple. We'll go take a look at that. That one is simply going to say, and in both cases of the last two scripts that we have, this one, the executing the query and the search clear, we are expecting an inbound field. In other words, we want to pass context into the script, leaving the script context independent, which is what we ideally want. So you can see right here that I've designated that the variable coming in is a field. It expects a field ref. This is a field reference. This is just a way that I identify what my parameter is expecting. We get the value of the script parameter 1, super simple, and it is a full field reference. Speaking of which, a full field reference, when you are using the get functions, must be combined or created. Let's take a quick look at our custom functions. You can see that these are the custom functions that are in this, required by this technique. It is this one, and this one. All of the remainders are used for the technique file in general, not part of this specific technique. In this case, we've already seen the keyboard exists. The value exists is just it's either using a pattern or a filter values. That is simply just looking for the value, a existing value within a list of values. But get active field is simply just the combination of the active field table name in conjunction with the get active field name. And it's just converting FileMaker's two get active functions to combine a fully qualified field name. That is what's required when you're going to pass that into a script. We're doing abstraction here in our scripting. So once that comes in, there's only a few other things we need. We're going to capture the object name, which in this case is going to be search field so that we can go back to it. We're going to capture the record ID, which as I mentioned is the universally available under the hood, always incrementing number that you cannot change or do anything about that we have access to. We are going to capture that into a global variable. This is what allows us to go back to the same record because we know, based on what I've told you, the query is going to move off of that record and we need to get back to that record. And that's strictly for the reason that we know that if we stay on the same record, the on-record load will not trigger. And we need to guarantee that the on-record load will trigger because that is what's enforcing our sort in this particular situation. And that's what gives us access to the on-record load trigger. We have to move off of the record and get back onto it somehow, in this case using the record ID, so that we can take advantage of the trigger. So the rest of it is pretty simple. First off, we are going to set a field by name. This is our abstraction. We are clearing it out. If there's an error, then we want to handle that. You would put in whether you want to show a dialog here or capture it to a log. Look at other videos on the magazine website if you're interested about logging. I just recently did one. We are always going to reference this script rather than putting the show all records right here. That would make this script very specific to my implementation, where I want a dedicated script to be what's going to bring up user records. So I already explained that. Here is where it comes right here. If the found count is greater than 1, we have more than one record. Obviously, you need more than one record in order to move to another record. And the get record ID is equal to the same record ID. In other words, if the ID that we captured at the very beginning as a result of our search is going to be the same, that means that we're on the same record. The on-record load will not trigger. We need to get off of that, and we're going to do that. That's where we get this go-to record. And you can see it's a little bit complex here with the calculation, but it's not so difficult that you won't be able to understand it. Let's take a look at it. Obviously, if we're on the very first record in a 2-record found set, we cannot go to the previous record, so we need to go to record number 2. If we're on a 2-record found set and we're on the bottom record, we cannot go to the next record, we must go to the previous record. So that's all that this logic is doing, is it's simply saying, based on my found set, you either need to go one up or one down, and by virtue of doing that, the on-record load is going to be triggered. But after the results have been returned, we are then going to go back to that record, the original record with the ID that we captured, and the on-record load is going to be triggered a second time. So in one sense, you have to endure an unnecessary triggering of an on-record load just by virtue of this. Of course, you can select all of these, and if you don't want that part of your search, you can comment them out and turn that off. I like the fact that I get to access the on-record load even if I stay on the same record where it was previously run and isn't going to run again. I like access to triggers. Otherwise, if the object is empty, there is no reason to go to something. If it is not empty, meaning we have it, we're going to go back to that same field and we are going to stop. Now that's everything that we're going to do as a result of clearing this. You clear this, you want to stay in the same field so that the user can then do another search or enhance unless they hit tab and they want to go out. If you land in this field after it's cleared, we do not want to get out of the field. We exit with false. Otherwise, we exit with true. Maybe they hit the tab key after it's been cleared, and we want to advance to the next field. And finally, the execution of the script. This, you can see, is going to be relatively the same thing. First off, we're going to capture our query. The query is the contents of the actual field. It's important that you recognize that when we go to layout mode and we right-click on this and choose our script triggers, it's important that you recognize that we are using the onObject save. We are not using the onObject modify. That is because the onObject save has access to the data in the field because this trigger is happening after that data has been saved. Whereas with the onObject modify, that is going to trigger the script prior to the data being saved into the field, and you would not have access to it. Whereas in this one, we do have access to the get active field contents. And as you can see, our parameter inbound is the get active field contents right there. So we are passing the contents into the search execution of the query, and this is all so that we can get to this one super valuable step right there, perform quick find. So everything up at the top is the same. We're capturing our query value, saving our object, we're saving the record ID using FileMaker's get record ID internal value, saving it to a global variable dedicated, turning on our error capture because we don't want FileMaker to show its dialog for the error. We are then getting our active field contents. If it is not empty, or if it is empty, then we are going to run the clear, meaning the user has cleared the search. Let's clear the result and do a reset. Bring the user back to their found set of what they should be. In this case, all found records. Here is our magic one step right there, perform the quick find. And then we have a couple of errors that we're looking at. If we have a 401, it's an empty found set. You can see right here that I am intentionally creating a found set. In other words, by virtue of the fact that we have turned on error capture right here, when we perform our query, if that query results in no records, I want to intentionally show no records. The reason for that is I get that nice little effect right there of this. No matches found. I want this to show up, and this only shows up when the get found count is 0. And so we have to enforce that by saying if we did not get any records, show all the records and then show the inverse of that, and that's what's going to give you a result. Now, performance tip, it is possible to get a 0 found set in a better fashion. In this particular case, this is the easy way out. This is me saying I want to show all records, which is telling FileMaker these records you're going to load all of them. Now, if this show all records results in records that are not currently part of the user's cache, FileMaker will have to load and transfer data from the server to the client. So show all records is not always the best solution. when you're looking at creating an empty found set. So by virtue of show all records, it is possible that there are records that are not in my cache and FileMaker has to load that data. Then I'm just going to show the inverse. What's the solution to that? It is possible to actually just run a perform find. So if I had a perform find right here, and if I was able to specify searching for a found set that I know will result in 0, what would one of those be? One of those would be the case where you search for an empty ID field. Now in my database systems, all primary key fields are all simply named ID. So I would be able to perform a find on a field or using a variable. So I would be able to have a set variable, and that variable would be able to be a field name or a field that I want, a query value, I should say. Getting a little off the track here, but it's, in essence, I would be able to say, I know that in every table in my whole solution, the primary key is always ID. Because I know that and I rely on that fact, I can search that field and I can search the ID field for every instance of an empty ID field. Knowing that that's not even possible, the results of my perform find looking for an empty ID field will always be a 0 found set. That is a much better way of creating a 0 found set for the purpose of showing this little graphic icon than doing the show all records. But for the sake of this technique, I am putting this in here because it is guaranteed to work in every database no matter what, whereas my method of using a perform find on a field called ID may not work in your situation. So we only have one other option. It is possible that maybe there are no fields that are specified for quick find, and that's what this error is, 102. So we say nothing to search, no fields are specified for quick find right here, and we exit out of the dialog with a false. And I've already discussed, which you saw in the clear script, we are moving off of the record, and this is replicated code right here. I probably should put that into a dedicated script, but I figured 4 scripts was enough. And finally, we have the same thing right here that we saw in the clear. We are simply going to go back to that target object, the search field, and stay in it continuously until we have absolutely nothing and the user hits a key that they are going to advance, and then we will finally exit with a true and pass that key on through, and the user will go. And that is what happens as a result of this Power Find Quick Mode. The things that I like about this: number one, yes, Quick Find is really nice here in native FileMaker, but it does require the status area to be shown, and many times I am not showing that, and I'm locking the user out of that. I want to take advantage of Quick Find. Within Quick Find, I want to be able to control things in the environment, such as the fact that the records are always sorted. I would also like to be able to do something as a result of the Quick Find, and I am doing that by taking advantage of the on-record load, knowing that if I'm on the same record when I do a search and that's part of my results, I need to get off of that record, but I need to come back to it. And if it wasn't clear how I implemented that, and you're still having a little bit of confusion, let me clarify just a little bit further. There is a function called getRecordID. It is an environment function in FileMaker. It is internal, it is available, it is indexable, and it is free. So you can see right here that I have a calculation that happens to be an index calculation, which allows me to have it be part of a relationship. So by virtue of having this variable, this field available, I can use this global field, and as you saw, when I populate this global field using my global variable of onRecordLoad.id, I am saying I want to use a relationship to go back to the original record the user was on, knowing that the search script moved me off of that record on purpose to invoke onRecordLoad and puts me back on that where onRecordLoad is actually triggered a second time. And the relationship looks like this. You simply have your global rec ID being related to your record ID, And one thing to keep in mind is even though this shows that this is a one-to-many relationship, or in this case it's not a true one, this is a global-to-many relationship, it is not a global-to-many relationship. It is actually a one-to-one relationship because internally it is not even possible for FileMaker's getRecordID to ever return a duplicate. It is always an incremented number. So this is actually a misrepresentation of the relationship. It is truly a one-to-one, and that's what makes it a very streamlined and efficient process. But the only other thing I didn't mention is we can also use the summary function list of in order to get a list of all current record IDs. How does that benefit us? Well, we're able to see once a found set comes up, is the ID that I saved part of that found set of results? If it is, then I can do this. If it's not, then I can do that. And that is our logic when we're breaking this technique down. And that is what I have for this technique. Really nice, cool little feature. No matches found. You can show all. You can hit the escape key, delete, type in partials, MAT, back it off, get more. And there you go. That is Quick Find Power Mode. And as always, I hope this information has helped you out, helped you learn more about how FileMaker works, the insides, given you a great technique to use. And as always, I'd like to wish you much luck. And until next time, happy FileMaking. We hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial, and we'd like to say thank you for your subscription and your support. If you're not already a subscriber, head on over to www.filemakermagazine.com/subscribe for more information about the benefits of joining.